have to talk about football. That's the rules. See, the thing is when we started the Double Shot show, the funny part is it was supposed to be we'd do all teams. And then everybody shows up here and goes, Steelers, because we draw from all over, okay, which is really cool. Everybody would want the biggest possible audience, right? Thing is, here in the city, it's a lot more of an even distribution between Steelers, Penguins, and Pirates in that order. And today has been a very, very, very big day in the land of the Pirates. Not at all for good reasons. And I'm sorry, that's how we're going to open today. Now, eventually, as you can tell from looking over there at that headline, we're going to talk about the Steelers opening rookie camp tomorrow. We will get there. But as Carl says, new manager, that's newsworthy. No, Carl, it's not about the new manager. It's about the old general manager. It's about being the worst franchise in all of professional sports on merit. Because that's who they are. People who follow the Steelers think they have it rough. Oh, no, this is the worst time I can recall since the 80s or whatever else. People who follow the Penguins think of late, because they haven't made the playoffs 3 years in a row, that they have it rough. Oh, no, it's the end of times. It's going to be the Dick Tarnstrom era all over again and bankruptcy and everything. No. If you follow the Steelers or the Penguins, you have a 0.000 right to complain about anything compared to anyone who follows the baseball club. Because the baseball club today made known that they are going to retain the worst general manager our city has ever seen in any sport. So you Steelers fans or you Penguins fans, I don't want to hear about Ron Hextall. I don't want to hear any complaints ever about Jim Rutherford. I definitely don't want to hear from Steelers fans about Omar Khan, Kevin Colbert, or whatever. This is some horrific general managing. The Pirates are .410 for a winning percentage since this guy took over. They have a bottom third minor league system. They're absolutely a joke in every conceivable capacity. And what they did today to Derek Shelton, even though he was not a good manager, even though he had his flaws, was to just scapegoat him right out onto the railroad tracks. That's what they did. You can say what you want about Shelton, and you can say about his lineups and whatever else, but he had Alexander. Is that even his name? Alexander, I'm looking over at her like she'd know. Alexander Canario? Have you ever heard of Alexander Canario? No. He batted fifth the other day. He had a 122 batting average. He batted fifth. In the order. They've lost 7 in a row. They've lost, is it 10 or 11 out of their past 12 or something like that? It's 10 out of their last 11. They're 12-26. And they let the general manager make a statement in the press release. Like they let him say something that passed judgment on Shelton. This is nuts. This is insanity that this was allowed to occur. I can't even wrap my head around any of this. If anybody can come close to explaining how you can have the gumption to have all of that occur today and allow that to happen. And yeah, I know there's always the old, the Bob Nutting thing and whatever else. Okay. And it does come down to him because he's the only one that can make this move. He's the only one that would make this move. And he didn't. And if it was just about 12-26, if they were off to some slow, sluggish start or something, you could say, all right, well, yeah, everybody gets off to a slow start. Look, even Brian Reynolds isn't hitting. You can't do that with this. This is year 6. This is actually who they are. And it's who they are at every level. It's who they are in Indianapolis, Altoona, Greensboro, Bradenton. What are you laughing about? That I'm reading off the minor league affiliates?
No, the Pirates cannot even fire people correctly.
No, they can't. They can't. It's like only the Pirates could bungle this. The firing of a manager, which is supposed to placate people or kick the can down the road or whatever. Come on. It's unbelievable. Anyway, when we come back, we're going to bring Chris in. And I don't care if you're complaining about football. I don't care.
At DK Pittsburgh Sports, we take pride in coverage that connects our city's fans to their favorite teams. Now, that connection's stronger than ever. Introducing our all-new state-of-the-art app. Find expert inside reporting and original podcasts. Check live box scores. Track the latest stats. Chat it up with our community of thousands of fans, all in one place. The new app from DK Pittsburgh Sports. Coverage that connects.
You see, David says the Pirates are the Browns of Major League Baseball. It's the other way around, man. The Browns are the Pirates of the NFL. Okay? I mean, let's really set some standards here. The Browns have at least been in the playoffs. They won a playoff game right across the river. You know, I mean, what are we doing here? Chris, what is this, man? What do you do? Like, let's just from setting aside baseball, the baseball component to this. Like, what do we do? Okay, you're on our staff.
Yeah.
I mean, I need talk down from the ledger. Why are we covering this crap? It's not even sports.
Yeah, well, and that's been the conversation that we've been having internally has been that unfortunately, you know, this is Greg's first year on the beat. He's not able to really cover baseball. Like we're not actually covering baseball games right now. We're having to cover everything else that's going on. We're having to cover the Bucko bricks being taken away and told nobody told where they went. We're being having to talk about all the sell the team chants at the ballpark. We're having to talk about so many other things that have nothing to do with the actual baseball team. And then when you actually have to watch the product, it stinks.
It's horrible.
It's bad baseball.
And you do some games for us too, because there's 162. We use everybody.
Too many so far.
And you go over to the ballpark and you're like, what do you want me to write, man? Or like, what do you want me to say? Because it's just exactly that bad. Every game is the same. They were funny. They're complaining about their lack of consistency. They're phenomenally consistent.
Oh yeah,
they lose every game the exact same way.
They're really consistent. You know, obviously, you know, I'm on Steelers and cover everything Steelers, and but you know, I tag in every now and then on Pirates. Even tagged in on a few Penguins games. I didn't have any dread going to cover the Penguins. And they weren't a good hockey team either. They didn't make the playoffs. I always, every time I see it on the schedule, there's that little bit of dread for just a second.
Yeah, because there's nothing to it. Yeah, there's nothing to it.
Yeah, it's bad baseball.
Phil says, I feel bad for DK. He has to cover all three sports. I mean, dude, it's our company. We can do what we want, but this is the way we've approached this from the beginning. Okay. And I'm actually proud of that. You know, we started in the company, DK Pittsburgh Sports, in 2014. I got 2 whole Pirates in the playoffs years right off the bat. Okay. That looked like this was going to be the right move. And when you see the things that they do and you understand that their principal motivation is not winning. Okay. They like to win when it happens. It's convenient and it's cool and it makes life a little easier on everybody, but it's not at the top of the list. It's not at the top of the list. And that's what gets you. Then, Chris, when you went to cover the Penguins, never mind. I mean, they finished the season 10-5-2. Now, they missed the playoffs, so you're correct. Not a good team. You don't make the playoffs, you're not a good team in the NHL. Okay? Yeah. But did you ever think to yourself, boy, they're not serious about winning?
Oh, no, you could see it. I mean, they're especially one place. Yeah. Well, especially one guy at the top who just refuses to let anybody else just go through the motions. You don't get the same sense covering the other two teams that, you know, they're not trying. You know, that's the one thing that I think when people watch the Steelers and get, they think that they're being complacent because they're settling for 9-8 or 10-7 every year. Again, I'll continue to say that the main reason why you're seeing them being the one phrase I keep saying is mired in mediocrity. The reason why you keep seeing that more than anything is because they don't have the one thing that every football team, every successful football team needs, and that's a franchise quarterback. They don't have one, and haven't really had one since Ben's arm blew out. So that's the main reason why. It's not complacency whatsoever. It's not settling and being okay with barely squeaking into the playoffs and not winning anything. They want to win, and there's a strong desire to do so.
Yeah, that's why one of the things I hope people understand this, like earlier this week in the George Pickens stuff, and everybody was rattled by it, and you come on and you see me and Chris kind of calm about it, and they say, oh yeah, I mean, it sounds like that they're really, and the people who were mad at us were saying that, sounds like we really trust the Steelers management stuff. It's because we're seeing all three of these. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we understand that 2 out of the 3 teams have people running them who know what they're doing. Yeah. Okay. They're not perfect. The Steelers aren't perfect. The Penguins aren't perfect. The Steelers haven't won a playoff game since, what was Kansas City? What year?
It was the 2016 season. So it was January 2017.
January of 2017. The Penguins haven't won a playoff series, Stanley Cup playoff series, since the spring of 2018 when they knocked the Flyers out in the first round. That's way too long. It's unacceptable. They've made mistakes. They've hired. They've fired. They didn't fire Kevin Colbert. He retired, but they've made moves. Okay, they've done different things. Now, have they done enough on the Steelers front? Most people, myself included, would argue no. Have they done enough on the Penguins front? They sure have now. Now Mike Sullivan's gone.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about the Pirates and you just see they have a .410 winning percentage under this general manager. This is year 6.
Yeah.
And the minor league system's nothing special.
Yeah, you got to see some improvement. And the one thing that I noticed, and again, I only cover a handful of cover games every now and then. I picked up a series in Texas last year. Went there and noticed just obviously one of the main themes about the team last year was just how often they got caught looking at strike 3
with the bases loaded.
Yeah, you're not giving yourself a chance. And so when they were playing that series in Texas, they had a catcher behind the plate. The Rangers have a catcher behind the plate who's one of the absolute best at framing pitches. And for anybody who doesn't understand that terminology in baseball, is when the catcher literally holds the after he receives the pitch, he literally holds it in a certain way to make it look like a strike, especially if it's close. And there are catchers who are very, very good at doing this and deceive umpires and get those extra strike calls. And so I asked, do you take that into account when you're preparing for this type of a series where anything close, you've got to swing, you got to get the bat off your shoulder? And he's like, we're not worried about anybody else. We do our thing. And I'm like, are you serious? You have your own process and you are so, what's your record? You are so arrogant in your process and it sucks. And the thing is, the other 2 teams in this town don't operate that way. They just don't. What was the one reason the Steelers didn't throw to the middle of the field against Atlanta in the season opener last year? It wasn't because they didn't want to. What did Mike Tomlin say? It's because they got 2 amazing safeties that take away the middle of the field. Why in the heck would we throw the football there? Do we want to throw interceptions? No. You have to adjust to what your opponents are doing. You have to. It's amazing.
Here, Jack Long comes in with some context here. Pirates, by the way, this is their 144th year in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Okay. They're one of the oldest franchises, not in baseball, not in North American sports, in organized sport worldwide. Yeah. The Pirates are one of the most established franchises on the planet. Okay. It goes the order goes like this. If you go backward through time, it's basically the Pirates, the Reds, running races against each other, the original marathon in Greece, and then the first Olympics, and then just rock throwing among cavemen. This is the oldest of old things. And all they're doing is urinating all over it. Okay. Paulie says the Pirates have, listen to this, a 10,851-10,845 all-time 1-loss record. for their entire 144-year existence. That means they're this close to going under 500 as a franchise for the first time since 1903. Nothing moves them. Nothing moves them to action. And all they did today was just perpetuate the inaction. They replaced the manager with the bench coach. Now, I like Don Kelly a lot. It's hard not to. But nothing changed about the franchise today because Donnie's going to have to run the same trash out onto that field tomorrow night against the Braves.
Yeah, there's not a philosophical change when you just in baseball when you just fire the manager. The entire organization, the culture, everything, it needs a complete reset, and that's unfortunately that's just where they are. And unfortunately, like you have to figure out a way to do that without wasting the years of Paul Skeens. And how do you do that? Like, and literally, how do you do that? Because other than spending your way out, which that doesn't appear to be an option, other than spending your way out, like there's almost no other way to do it.
Well, yeah, you fire everybody. You start over. You say you had 5+ years. You did nothing.
Right.
You did nothing.
Yeah.
You actually made it worse. The 2019 was way better than this one. The one that they inherited. It had an arguably a deeper minor league system, depending on which rankings you follow.
Yeah.
And all he did was go backward. All he did was goes backward and spend, by the way, $95 million in that span on draft picks, Latin American free agents, and other international free agents. $95 million. You know how many of those are on the team right now? Paul Skeens. How does that happen? You know, Kyler says, I don't even know what this means. Steelers haven't been 500 since 2019, but yeah, 500 every season. Oh yeah, that they're playing for 500. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't play for that. The Steelers don't play for that. People talk about that. Mostly, it's people who aren't here. I never hear fans mention it.
No, and again, you know, when we talk about when did this whole stretch really start? Because you can say, well, they haven't won a playoff game since January 2017. Well, everybody remembers how great the 2017 Steelers were, and I'm talking about the next season. And the only reason that team not only lost to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars in the playoffs, but weren't actually a legitimate Super Bowl contender by the time playoffs rolled around was because Ryan Shazier suffered a career-ending injury. I will die on the hill that team is one of the 3 best in franchise history that didn't make the Super Bowl. And they should have been in the Super Bowl had Shazier not been injured. But then 2018, that was a whole circus sideshow because of Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell and all this stuff. Then 2019 on, the majority of the stretch, they haven't had a quarterback. It was Ben blew his arm out, and so you had a season of a very young Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges. You had Ben post-arm injury for 2 years, and then you've been going through this trying to draft Kenny Pickett, give him a chance, and now a whole bunch of short-term fixes because you got to find a franchise quarterback.
Michael Cross says that Paul Skeens is the only one putting butts in the seats. They won't trade him yet. He hasn't put any butts in the seats this year. Okay, he had one game that he pitched in front of about 7,000, 8,000 people?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's been
that honeymoon is over. And that has nothing to do with Paul. Okay. Mm-hmm. That has nothing to do with him. He's still exactly all that. Now he's not striking out 20 people a game or whatever, but don't be pinning any of this. Not that you did, Michael. I mean, anybody, don't be pinning any of this on him, but no, there's no gate thing. They ruined that too. Only they could ruin having the pitcher of the 2000s fall to them from the sky. Only they could turn that into a negative, and they have. And they have, because all he did by arriving here was to up the ante on all these guys, and they're not equipped.
Yep.
They're not equipped. Their baseball people do not know what in the hell they're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, Walmart here points out we're talking about first overall picks. Chris,
yeah,
we're talking about now, okay, because we're lumping all three teams together today. All right, to heck with it, right? If the Steelers drafted first overall, you know where I'm going here, right? Okay.
Yeah.
If the Penguins drafted first overall, see, when the Steelers haven't drafted first overall since Green or Bradshaw.
If there was another time since Bradshaw, I can't remember when it would have been.
Well, what was Mean Joe? Was Mean Joe second? Does that sound right?
I can't remember, but that was obviously before Bradshaw.
Guys, help us out here. What are we paying you for?
Yeah.
we need first and second. We need whether or not Mean Joe and Bradshaw are first or second overall. Okay. I want to say Mean Joe is second out of North Texas, and that Bradshaw was first overall. Okay, here Nick says Bradshaw was the last number one, but where was Mean Joe?
Mean Joe was not first overall.
No, but I want to say he was. I want to say he was two. Mean Joe Green out of North Texas University. Come on, say it like you mean it. Mean Joe was fifth. Dwayne Martin says.
Yeah.
Greatest player in franchise history.
Still. 100%.
100%. Wait, now we're getting a bunch of twos here. Come on, you guys are guessing. I don't need guessing. I need Googling.
We always have someone to say fourth. Like,
okay, here. Joe's finally getting definitive on here. All right. Google says fourth. It's fourth. All right. The Penguins, when they drafted first overall, oh my God. Now, they also lined up with some really good positioning in 1984 and then again in 2004, 2005. But you get the point here, okay?
Yeah.
Henry Davis is first overall. He is, as we speak, the backup catcher, who is only the backup catcher because Andy Rodriguez is hurt. Otherwise, he'd be in the minors. Henry's batting 130. Henry strikes out once of every 3 times that he's up. Henry is 25 years old. Henry is not very good defensively. I love Henry, the kid. Okay? I can't say enough good things about Henry, the young man. He never should have been a first overall pick. Okay, and this alone, if you were talking about the Steelers or the Penguins, would get you fried alive. What happens in Pittsburgh is that gets ignored because everybody's so caught up in payroll and nutting that they don't pay attention to the horrific baseball mistakes that are made. Okay, and that's the part that drives me nuts about this. How can you let this off the hook just because all they're talking about on the radio is nutting and payroll? But they've taken real live assets. By the way, you know who's outspent the Pirates on the draft over the last 15 years? You know who has outspent the Pirates? Nobody. Nobody. They've spent more money than any other team, which stands to reason the way the structure works there.
Yeah.
And no, Henry was not one of one based on signability. He wasn't. Stop it. Stop giving them excuses.
Yeah.
They're terrible at what they do. It wasn't signability. They took him because they thought he was it. Read up on some of the interviews about this. Read up on the stuff that Ben Cherington said just a week ago on a podcast somewhere with in New York about how he wasn't even going to take Skeens, that his analytics people had to talk him into it because he didn't believe in taking pictures. Why? That's the most expensive thing to get.
Yeah. And I think I remember covering that draft in which, because I was covering the Rangers at the time, and the Rangers were picking second in that draft. And of course, you know, the big name that was being tied to the Rangers quite a bit heading into that draft was Jack Leiter. But the big wild card in the Rangers not getting Jack Leiter was, what if the Pirates take him? And, you know, when you learn stuff like that, now you learn, well, there's no chance that they're going to take Jack Leiter because Ben Cherington didn't believe in taking pitchers in the first round. And so it's like,
and he had to be talked into it with Skeens.
Yeah.
How about just opening your eyes?
Yeah.
How about just watching what he did in the College World Series? The whole of the baseball world and beyond that, actually, because Skeens at LSU was must-watch TV no matter what sports you were interested in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's and like Dylan Cruz was in that same draft, and he was a really, really interesting prospect. But
He's a big dude.
But it's not Paul Skeens. Like Paul Skeens won Rookie of the Year and was a legitimate Cy Young finalist in less than a season. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, it really is. Guys, if you want, we can do the rest. We're going to do like 10 more minutes here, or a little bit less actually. We can go all football if that's a thing here. But I never want, if you insist, right? You can twist our arms here, but this is, one thing about the city is, it's the only place in the world where all of the teams have the same first name and the same set of colors. So if you're here, you don't really distinguish that much between them. There's no such thing as someone who's a Steelers fan who isn't also a Penguins and Pirates fan. It's one of the things that makes us cool, I think. Cody comes and rubs it in with the "Let's Go Stars" nonsense. Get out of here.
Yes.
You both suck. Now here's something we can all get behind. How about the Hounds beating New York City FC last night? An MLS team in front of a big crowd over there at Highmark Stadium. See, we know the people who run and own the Hounds. We know them actually really, really well. Our headquarters used to be over there. Believe me, they care about winning. They are apoplectic when the Hounds lose. They're inconsolable. So if you're looking for something to do in the summertime for a team that gives a crap, they're right across the river, the other river.
Yeah.
Go over and check out Pittsburgh Riverhounds SC. They've won 3 of their last 4 matches against MLS sides, by the way.
That's cool.
You know what we need in this world, right, Chris? We need pro rel, baby, and it's some version of it's coming.
I sure hope so. One of the things that I love about watching English football is the fact that, like, if you're at the bottom, you go down to the championship, and the teams that playing in the championship, the top 3 go up into the Premier League, and I love it. And it's that whole system. I mean, you want to talk about being forced to give a crap about every single match that you play. There you go. I mean, just shoot, man. Like, if you look at the standings in the Premier League, there are some teams that should not be near the bottom, like West Ham. West Ham just a couple of years ago, I think they were in the Champions League. Like, they qualified for Champions League, and now they were like flirting with relegation.
Yeah, well, USL is going to a pro rail system, and USL is going to be a rival league to MLS because nobody believes in the MLS system. Nobody believes that MLS has an opportunity. But Jonathan says, I'm a Pittsburgh sports fan. The Pirates are my team, if you ask me, but I haven't followed closely since Bonds and Vance. Like, they're not your team, dude. They've played just a little bit of baseball since then. Looking here for anything that's football here. I saw somebody bringing up the Stars again. If you want to talk about Mikko Rantanen all by himself wrecking the Winnipeg Jets last night, you can do that somewhere else. Okay.
Awesome.
Chris, he is. I mean, he's so on fire right now that he can shoot the puck off the Winnipeg players and it goes in.
Oh, seriously?
And that actually happened.
It did actually happen. That was the hat-trick goal.
John Wachowski says they were never going to pick up George Pickens' 5th-year option. Trading him was the only way to get something for him. It would have been nice to see him opposite DK Metcalf, but it was the right move. George wasn't going to get a second contract here.
No, and there is no 5th-year option for players taken after the first round. So he was heading into the final year of his rookie deal. The only way to keep him past this upcoming season without giving him a contract extension would have been to franchise tag him. And so you're paying a lot of money for a guy that obviously that they weren't committing to. And so what's the point at that point?
Promotion and relegation, by the way, is what I meant when I said pro rel. In soccer, that's almost always combined into that common term. If you lose or you finish, you're one of the worst teams in your league, you actually get thrown out of the league.
Yep.
Okay, you get moved to a lower level. Whereas the other it also applies in the other direction. And if Major League Baseball were pro rel, the Pirates would be thrown out.
Ooh,
I still don't think they'd care.
Seriously.
I mean, can you imagine them saying, oh no, we're going to get thrown out?
Yeah.
Now we need to go and show urgency and get some players and fire some people and establish a culture of accountability. Adam says, I loved George Pickens when he was making acrobatic catches and running his routes and blocking. So I liked him for about an hour of my entire life. Totally had me. Did you see that?
Yeah. That was good.
Very, very good. Kyler Michael points out that in a pro-rel NFL, you would have no Cleveland franchise. One could argue they were already thrown out once. Went there.
Yeah.
Went there. Hyde Daddy says, if Pickens had 10% of the work ethic of a young AB, I'd put up with all the nonsense, but he just doesn't care about anything but GP. You know, George is a little weird in that regard. He works off the field.
He does.
Okay, George is in unbelievable shape. His conditioning, and you don't get that just by showing up and pushing a button on the vending machine.
Nope.
Okay, George works his rear end off. He just elects not to in actual games for some reason. You know, like it's beneath him or he's too cool for that or whatever. I don't know.
Or he's trying to protect his health or whatever. And I understand wanting to keep somebody healthy. But at the same time, the team suffers whenever that becomes a habit, because then whenever you do need to be something when you're not the first read or whatever, like it becomes a habit, and it started to really, really show last season. And again, you can look at the tape and be like, you can kind of like, Chris, you're just being too hard on him. I also had players literally pull me aside and complain about it, like to me.
Because it messes up everything they want to do. All of them. Everything has to be all 11 guys. Those aren't cliches.
Yeah.
You know, if he doesn't block somebody, let's do this, because we did a lot of that yesterday. Ben Gibson says, was there a major difference between Broderick Jones playing his rookie in his second year, or was it the expectations? Oh, no, it was different. And it was different. This was the nutty part. It was different right away, like in Latrobe. I'm not talking about it in the season. We saw it in Latrobe, and we were asking all kinds of questions about it right out there on Chuck Noll Field. And then it goes into the preseason, and a dude in Buffalo ate him alive. From Buffalo.
Yeah.
From the Bills. Oh, come on. He's so good.
Von Miller?
No, it wasn't Von Miller.
Okay. I can't remember.
Somebody's going to put it up here. Somebody from Buffalo just chewed him up and spat him out. It was just really, really uncomfortable to watch. Then it continued into the season. It was Greg Rousseau.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's right here. Yeah. I have all kinds of stuff on my mind today. I wasn't going to get Greg Rousseau. But Rousseau was he was feasting, you know, and this was just preseason. Those guys aren't even wired yet.
Yeah.
You know, and then we have people who made excuses for him. No offense, David. Say, was that because of his elbow injury? The elbow thing was so minor that how many practices did he miss in Latrobe? Chris, you covered every single practice. How many did he miss?
I think he missed some snaps in that practice when he suffered it, and then that was it. That's all I remember.
So the correct answer is 0, because he was even part of that practice. What that tells you, the coaching staff gave him a set of pads and a helmet for every single practice in Latrobe. And then Mike Tomlin, when we would ask him repeatedly about the injury situation, what would he say, Chris?
I mean, he would shut it down. I mean, it's just now. Listen,
that tells you that the coach is in communication with the athletic trainers and the medical staff, and they're telling him he's fine. Yeah. So no, don't do that with the elbow.
I mean, let's also be really, really honest here about that situation. If there was a legitimate concern about his elbow in training camp before preseason even starts, shut him down, because it's not like you don't have somebody else who can step in and play right tackle. You just drafted a guy to play right tackle. And you had Dan Moore, who was still on the team, who could play left tackle. I mean, literally, there was no reason to force him through and have him keep practicing and possibly injure it even worse. It wasn't an issue. It just wasn't. If it were a serious issue, you would have seen him be shut down for part of training camp and or part of the preseason. Maybe even early into the regular season if it was bad enough.
Jeffrey Carr says, DK and Chris, which wide receiver would you like to see the Steelers pick up? I'm presuming that you mean externally. Mm-hmm. My answer is no one soon.
Oh, yeah.
And that's because you just never know. If you say, uh-oh, Jacksonville let a guy go today. We gotta get him now before somebody else does.
Yeah.
Easy. Lots of wide receivers are going to come available in one form or another. And I'm not saying that because of the price. Steelers can afford the cap space.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not saying that because of the potential trade exchange, because the Steelers have picks galore that they can move for such a player. I'm saying that because wait for your guy. Wait for the one that makes you. Omar actually talks about this on occasion, that you want that move to be one where you just go, oh, whoa, okay, got to do that. As opposed to you got to do that because the guy's sitting there right now and someone else might snap him up. Oh, well.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that there are potential players out there for trade that maybe teams will get a better idea of whether they actually want to trade them or not after OTAs and minicamp are done. Or maybe even after, during OTAs or something. And you sound like in an ideal situation, you're like, yeah, we can acquire him before. But like, for example, the one name that keeps coming up is DJ Moore in Chicago. And that's obviously a very attractive name because he's done quite a bit at the NFL level. He's only 28 years old. The Bears just drafted Roma Dunze last year. They drafted Luther Burden this year. They drafted Colson Loveland in the first round this year. So now they got 2 receiving tight ends. So you're like, there's only so much ball to go around, and Luther Burden is kind of redundant for DJ Moore. But if they wait until after June 1st to trade him, they will save $12.9 million. If they trade him
there's
before,
a lot of that out there, yeah.
If they trade him before June 1st, they will lose $35.24 million in cap space this year. So it's literally minus $35 million plus this year, or save $12.9 million if you just wait until after June 1st. So if DJ Moore is the guy you want to see them go get, that won't happen until after June 1st.
William wants to know what's more valuable, draft picks or cap space. It depends on your context. If you're building your roster up, okay, it's going to be draft picks because you want to be able to use those as assets to move up, get better picks, or to trade them around and improve your team more in a hurry. If you're a contender, okay, if you ask this question of Andy Reid, he would tell you it's cap space because all of the moves that the Chiefs make are losing guys that they can no longer afford under the cap. If you ask even a team that's not good, like the Bengals, which one would be more valuable, they would say cap space because they've now priced themselves out of pretty much everything by paying a quarterback, 2 wide receivers, and they had damned well better pay Trey Hendrickson on the other side of the ball, or they will still be a complete catastrophe on defense. So it varies situationally. For me, for the Steelers right now, I love the position they're in because they have both.
Yeah,
a lot of both.
Yeah, they do, and that's what you want to have. And again, what you'd really like is for the Steelers to not be in this position and have a franchise quarterback, but that's obviously not the case. They need to find one. They're not going to get one this year. We knew they weren't going to get one this year, but now they are in a much better position to get one next year, and not just get one, but build a roster up this year, build it up next year. With all those extra picks, because a lot of the time when a team trades up and goes to get a quarterback or goes to get up and get whoever they want, they have to give up a lot of picks in order to do so, or some heavy picks. When you have a whole bunch of picks, you can still end up having a pretty strong draft class outside of the quarterback, if that's the case next year. So that's what you want to have, because you also want to have a good roster around them too. You just don't want to throw them into a situation like Bryce Young was in with the Panthers.
Our last question. I'm sorry, we're going to take 2 more here. Paulie says, which team wins a championship first? Steelers, Penguins, or Pirates? Which one, Chris?
I would say Steelers.
Okay, I would say Penguins. I really believe in Kyle Dubas. I did when he first came. And he has an actual plan for this, but I'm starting to feel increasingly like Omar does too.
The reason why I say Steelers is because if they do get their franchise quarterback next year, that changes everything.
It does.
Everything. I mean, you saw if you build up the roster this year and next year, you literally could. I mean, we saw it happen with Ben Roethlisberger, won a Super Bowl his second season. If the roster is good enough around him and you add a franchise quarterback to that situation, it puts you. I understand it's a little bit different because it's an already established franchise quarterback. But I had this conversation with somebody in our live queues yesterday. If you magically were to put Josh Allen on this roster right now, they're competing for the Super Bowl. Like, that's not a debate. It's a more than good enough roster if you put an already established franchise quarterback on this roster. If you put a young one that's got to develop, it's going to take a couple more years. But could I see the Steelers, if they hit on that quarterback next year, could I see them winning a Super Bowl or at least being in one before the end of the decade? It's possible.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that I point to the Penguins instead, because if they do it, they're going to have to do it while their special guy is still here.
Yeah.
I guess you don't find Sidney Crosby's on trees.
Yeah.
You don't just trade up, say, we're going to get our Sid here. Nope, there's one of those. Our last actual question for the day comes from Aiden, who says, do undrafted rookies go to rookie mini camp? I want to see Rock Taylor and Keyshawn Williams in camp. The answer to that is yes, Aiden. The answer to where Chris and I are going to be tomorrow is rookie mini camp. And I'm looking forward to it. I'm not going to lie here, mostly just to get to know the picks. The access that we get to these kids is fantastic.
It is.
You can talk to them extensively, really get to know them. I know that in a lot of these cases, I remember some of these conversations for years. The first time we get to meet some of them. It's not the same doing it on a conference call. And remember that if Derek Harmon chooses to speak tomorrow, and that's obviously, it's all just going to be his call, okay? And it'll be the first time because, of course, losing his mom right after being drafted by the Steelers, and everybody, including the assembled media, were like, just go, kid. Just go. But here we'll get to speak with him for the first time, which will also be a special thing. What are you looking forward to tomorrow, Chris?
Yeah, it's the same thing. You get a look at not just the draft class, but the undrafted free agents that were signed, all the other tryouts that the Steelers are bringing in, that weren't necessarily, they're not under contract. They're just bringing them in to literally try out for the team, see if they can earn a spot on the 90-man roster for training camp. It's a fun time because it's almost like, it's kind of almost like the first day of school. Maybe it's like, no, not the first day of school. Maybe it's like that. Not a PTA meeting, but that for orientation that you have ahead of school.
What it is. That's a good word for it.
Yeah, like the week before school starts, you have kind of this orientation thing, and then OTAs and minicamp are kind of like for college. Sometimes you do this kind of walkthrough before classes actually start, and then by the time training camp comes, that actually feels like first day of school. So that's fun.
Snack Daddy does that thing where you slide under the garage door as it's closing, and he comes in with a $5 question and says, DK, what's something you've accomplished / overcome in your life that you're most proud of, something that really defines who you are today, minus the family stuff, which everybody would answer? Mine, for the purposes of this episode and this program, is going to be not only that I hired Chris, but that I talked him into moving his entire family here from Texas to work. Look at him over there. He's now stuck with us for life.
No, I'm truly grateful, truly blessed. It's definitely trying to actually take in the swing, because at the time I was debating, I was freelancing, and I was deciding whether I wanted to take the full headfirst dive into sports journalism or try to become a high school English teacher. That was the other career I was going to try to go be, and I'm really, really glad I took the swing on the former, because it's been very rewarding.
Well, so are we, and so is everybody, except for the people who will disagree with you on some of your chalk talks. They wish you stayed right the hell where you were. All right, guys, when we come back, we're going to take care of some business rather quickly, because we have yet another live shot coming up after this on the baseball thing. we did open up this program with me ranting and raving about the baseball team. And back then, David Mahokey came in with a $20 contribution, which we're grateful for. I don't think I put this up at the time, and I'm such a clod. He says, been watching some highlights of the Pirates 2013 to 15 teams that come up, and man, what an energy the city had for them. I legit missed that time. I can't believe we fumbled so hard. I don't care who this offends, but with all due respect to those of you who follow the Steelers and the Penguins, and heaven knows you should know by now what my respect is for that. That was different. Okay, there's something about that 144-year-old franchise that courses through our collective veins that the other two can't replicate. And when that happened, it was not like anything else. When we did a survey at the end of the decade of our readers at DK Pittsburgh Sports to ask them what they thought was the biggest, proudest, most everything moment in the city in all that time, they chose Johnny Cueto dropping the ball. Then the Penguins won 2 championships in there. The Steelers were in all kinds of big games as well, AFC championship games and so forth. Didn't matter. They chose that one. Let's go through the rest of these here. James Fairfield came in with $4.99. Dion Scott came in as a new member. Welcome, Dion. Same to you, Charles. Snack Daddy dropped a gift on the proceedings. Rashawn Fletcher finally became a YouTube member. Let's hear it for Rashawn and his grossly overdue contribution to our little society here. Kerry Russell always drops a gift. And then PG came a new member. I'm just going to tell myself that means the Post-Gazette has joined us. She's laughing. I think that's what that is. I think the PG decided they were going to become a member. I think they've just given up. Chris is losing it over there. Why are you saying these things? All right, guys. We're going to do a live show or live shot on the Pirates in about 2 or 3 minutes. On our Pirates channel, DK Pittsburgh Sports Pirates channel. Make sure you join us. What's our membership count again? 2349. You people are crazy. All right, let's do this again tomorrow.